Chinese painting is an art form that incorporates the essence of Chinese culture. Using a painting brush, ink, paper, and inkstone as the tools, it mainly depicts characters, landscape, flowers, birds, and animals. With the techniques of detail and fine brushwork, gongbi, freehand brushwork, xiyi, contour drawing, gule, boneless technique, mogu, it forms an independent style in the world art and painting circles. The charm of painting comes from the brush and ink, and the spirit of the nation is only to be found in the painting. For thousands of years, the art of Chinese painting has conveyed the pursuit for the highest standard of art through the brush, ink, the expression of feelings, and creation of atmosphere. Chinese painting emphasizes the expression of artistic conception as well as that of appearance. The style is either vigorous, elegant, bright, or smooth, all reflecting the inner quality of the artist. The culture of Chinese painting has its own special language and aesthetic standard. The single, most astonishing fact about Chinese painting is that each brushstroke is a defining move that cannot be improved or corrected. From the first to the last stroke, the artist must get it right the first time. In the recent 100 years, due to the start of a new historic period of China, the art of Chinese painting has experienced huge changes. The changes also reflect the development of contemporary China, from downfall, exploration, rising up, and the Renaissance. During this period, Chinese painting has created more than inherited the essence of painting. The scholar painting developed from the Yuan dynasty began to be challenged with questions and doubts because of its aloof attitude towards material pursuits. How could the scholars and literati do during the changes of nation and people? This led to the discussion and disputes about the development of Chinese fine art and Chinese painting. An innovation in Chinese brush painting must be put on the agenda. In the beginning of the 20th century, the traditional culture of China was faced with big challenges. The Western metropolitan culture brought huge impact on the Chinese traditional culture, with no exception to the Chinese painting. Ships from the other side of the ocean brought something new. Now some people in China propose they should learn from the Western art. At the beginning of the Qing dynasty, another missionary, Lang Xining, Giuseppe Castiglione, and other court painters tried to incorporate the art of brush and ink in Chinese painting with light and shade in Western art. In their works, we can see the combination of freestyle traditional landscape painting and Western-style modeling. The simple blending of Western art that emphasizes in 3 dimensions and Oriental art that is featured with freestyle and perspective makes the picture a little weird. This curt trial was limited within the court and disappeared soon because of lack of vitality. But in a sense, it's a very brave trial. When the traditional culture was facing a challenge, the scholar painting was having a tougher time. In contemporary China, the first artist to actively meet this challenge with a creative innovation was a traditional painter, Zhou. Living among the ordinary people in Shanghai, Zhou inherited the aesthetic traditions of scholar painting, but he also suggested a series of new methods. He was brave enough to use the Western red color and bestowed the flowers and bird life with vitality and bright colors. The thick application of ink and forceful brushstrokes give the painting a feeling of grandeur and power. The traditional ink and wash painting showed some malpractice when it was developed to Ming and Qing dynasties. The art of Chinese traditional painting once reached its peak, now needed a breakthrough out of the limit of the stereotypes. It required more freedom for the artistic expression. Xu Beihong, a famous Chinese painter, went abroad to Japan and Europe to learn the academism painting. He had been advocating to take advantage of the Western realism to make up the born deficiency of Chinese paintings in modeling abilities. The integration of Western and Eastern artistic style created a new issue for the Chinese culture in the 20th century. It required that painters have certain knowledge about both Eastern and Western painting. When the Chinese students went to Europe, they saw the elegant and graceful academism and the vibrancy and vitality of modern art. They were visually impressed. From the beginning of the 20th century, Western-style schools were beginning to take the place of traditional-style private schools. In 1912, Tsai Yuanpei began to be the first Minister of Education of the Republic of China. The scholars at that time thought that only the introduction of the Western scientific and democratic ideas could save the old China from declining. The pioneers in art education, led by Xu Beihong, proposed a new aesthetic education system. This has influenced an entire generation, or even several generations in the art circles. Xu Beihong also found a new path of ink painting in his own style. He borrowed the realism in Western painting and applied it so skillfully to depict the characters in Chinese painting. Yu Gong Moves the Mountain is one of Xu Beihong's representative works. Figure painting is the weakest part in the traditions of Chinese painting. Zhang Jiaohe was a student of Xu Beihong. Xu Beihong describes reality in an indirect way, but Zhang Jiaohe's long scroll painting, The Refugees, is a product of the strong clash by the reality on the inner being of the artist. Lin Fangmian, another master in contemporary Chinese painting, once was in charge of the Hangzhou National Art Academy. He proposed to introduce Western art, organize Chinese art, and incorporate the Chinese in Western art. Master Lin integrated the lines in Chinese painting, the folk art, and the colors in Western Fauvism. He incorporates perfectly the freehand brushwork in Chinese painting and the colors in Western modern art. The characters, flowers, and birds under his brush are very vivid, but the mild, tactful lines and the irregular shade of colors is the gentle personality of typical Chinese art. Liu Haisu is an even more innovative painter. He went abroad for study in his earlier times and was deeply influenced by the Impressionism and Fauvism. The Shanghai Fine Art School, established by Liu Haisu, was famous for its open-minded style. It was the center of Chinese contemporary art movement at the time. As other painters mentioned above, Liu Haisu was educated with the traditions as well as the fundamentals of Western art, but his brush painting was more the influence of the colors of modernism. The traditional Chinese painting is now adopting some skills from the Western art. What's more, it's exploring new ways within its boundary. Rooted in the Chinese landscape, the traditional Chinese painting still has huge potential to be explored. Zhang Daqian, a legendary figure in the modern art history, is a diligent and productive artist. He has knowledge on various fields, and the style is audacious and forceful with graceful colors. Another painting master, Qi Baishe, had lived in this house which he called by himself Baishe Painting House since 1926 till his death. He was born in a farmer's family and once was a carpenter. He had lots of experience from life and made a living by drawing portraits and seal cutting before the age of 60. Painting was only his interest in leisure time. In his late times, Qi Baishe decided to have a change. He was influenced by Wu Changshuo, but he developed something different from it. He incorporated the materials from the folk art, modeling, colors and wisdom into the brush painting. He transformed the elegant scholar painting into an approachable art form to ordinary people. Master Qi was good at seal cutting. He took some points from the Han Dynasty's chisel cutting and made the layout very peculiar, the cutting very direct, strong and powerful. As his painting, it usually surprised people and provided unexpected joy. His works transported a feeling of graciousness. He's good at incorporating the freehand brushwork in painting flowers with a very meticulous brushstroke in depicting grass and insects. His paintings explain his famous saying very well: "The best part is between the similar and not similar. Too similar goes ordinary, while not similar is cheating." There was another painter who shared the same prestige as Qi and was called South Huang, North Qi, is Huang bin Hong. He had wide ranges of knowledge and was more open-minded. He was traveling a lot and experiencing a lot in his early times. Later, he was working with publishing and editing businesses in Shanghai, during which he developed his unique ideas about aesthetic theories. Huang bin Hong claimed himself as a man from the wilderness because his landscape painting was famous for the description of Mount Huang. He made the fame quite late, so few people knew him when he was alive. Compared with Wu Changshuo and Qi Baishe, his works are not so close to the ordinary people's life, not a style that can be enjoyed by both the noble and the ordinary. The landscape paintings in his old times incorporated the grandeur and powerfulness of the North Song dynasty paintings. The techniques are so skillful and relaxed. He developed his personalized style of thick ink and deep color. His layout is quite abstract. The ink and color is thick and elegant, expressing the character of scholars. It is an art form that merges all the good points of traditional landscape paintings. In the most recent 100 years, Chinese traditional painting has a more affluent content, with many new rising painters. They either learn from the Western trends or cultivate deeper into the local culture. Their great achievements in art prove that the traditional Chinese paintings have strong vitality. It also proves that when the Chinese traditions are enriched with a new language and aesthetic concepts, they have huge potential. In the middle of the 20th century, Chinese traditional painting and the whole nation entered a brand new historical period. The Chinese artists made new development in the world of new opportunities. The modeling concept of traditional Chinese painting is not good at describing materials of realism. How to realize the change posed another challenge to the artists. Chinese traditional painting, especially landscape painting, has developed works that describe the new look of the country. Compared with the traditional artistic conception, the artists explored fully their innovative ability. In 1950, the first issue of the People's Fine Art published an article and promoted a new movement of Chinese traditional painting and innovation. The movement is part of the artistic policy that art should serve the need of people. Following this trend, the artistic concept in Chinese painting circles began to move towards the needs of the masses. The movement of paintings in New China since the 1950s made a great contribution. It attracted attention and made people attach great importance to the figure painting. The painters learnt from life and at the same time searched actively for the subject matters that can reflect the style and features of the new times. Chanyu studied different dancing movements and focused on depicting the characters and catch the verve and charm that could disappear within a second. It integrates the traditional techniques and the new styles vividly. Zhou found the point for a breakthrough in the theme of the frontier. He insisted on learning the traditions while drawing sketch, which is a typical and basic technique in Western painting. His style is heroic and powerful. The layout of the picture is active and glowing with warm colors. In the art education, some teachers majoring in the Chinese traditional painting have realized that during the sketch education, they must find the right observation method and express skills that suit the feature of Chinese traditional painting. Hence, big changes took place in the education system of Chinese traditional painting. The proposition of going deep into life has brought the landscape painters to take part in the activities of the time actively. The landscape paintings have changed to be closer to life, closer to the society. The landscape painting is a symbol of the spirit of a certain era. Li Kuran, a master of landscape painting of that era, specialized in drawing the landscape after 1950s. His motto was, "Establish immortal works for the motherland." And his goal was to accomplish the innovation of Chinese traditional painting. He had respect for the traditions while he explored bravely. He was good at drawing cattle herding paintings, which were so natural and vivid under his brush. The Li School landscape painting is profound and pretty. The picture is sedate and serious. Beneath the simple appearance, it reflects the profound nature. Black is the main tone of the paintings, but the black includes very rich elements of changing. The tranquility and connotation reflects the profoundness of the traditional culture. Another master of landscape painting, Fu Baoshi, went to Japan to study in his early years, and he specialized in Oriental fine art history. He loved to use the verse from Xin Qi Zhi, "Draw the country into pictures," as the calligraphic inscription of his paintings. He once led a sketching team to have a journey that covered 10,000 miles. Also, they held an exhibition of new look of the country in Beijing. Their work aroused sensation in the fine art circles. He was adept at integrating water, ink, and color, and achieved the damp and smooth effect of the paintings. Chanyu was a representative of Lingnan School of Guangdong Province. He was good at sketching. In drawing the landscape paintings, the artist rediscovered the beauty of nature. Chanyu and Lu were both representatives of this period. Lu was the representative of Chang'an School. He's got really eccentric personality. He was very productive and innovative too. During the innovation and development of Chinese traditional painting, one man must not be forgotten. That is Pan Tianqiu, another painter with impressive personality. He realized that during that time, the Chinese traditional painting tended to be only focusing on realism of Western sketch. In the 1960s, he proposed that art should remain independent. There should be some distance between Chinese and Western painting. The Chinese painting should have its own personality in the language, format, and style. The Chinese painting should establish its own unique image in the world of art. In his Chinese painting education, he proposed to use the traditional stroke lines to replace sketch. Pan Tianchu was influenced by Wu Changshuo and Shi Tao, with the realization of the relationship between art and the masses. Some other brush painters that have established their own styles are Chanyu, Huang, and Wenshi. Chanyu created fresh and vivid modern figure paintings. From their perspectives and in their unique ways, they broadened the area of brush painting that was hard to express in the traditional Chinese painting. They did a lot of experiments in the language of traditional brush painting, either a combination of Chinese and Western painting, or development form the traditions. The new Chinese brush painting now has an outlook different from the traditional painting. Ink and brush as the tools, the spirit of ink and brush as a culture, now have a lot more possibilities with the modern painters, all derived from life. The once very noble and aloof brush painting has different functions nowadays. A group of sharp-minded artists reached their peak time. Wu Guanzhong is an artist that has a unique understanding on the modern brush painting. He thinks that ink and brush should have a new concept different from the traditional one. His works are full of rhythms and passions, free from limitations and very adventurous. He has a special affection for the water country in South China and is keen on expressing the charm of it. For the past century, artists have been working hard to introduce the Western styles into the Chinese traditional painting and give deep thought of the root of our classical culture. They're sparing no effort in trying to find new paths for the Chinese traditional painting to develop with the pace of time.